Welcome back to the Conference USA Roundtable once again for our bi-weekly edition. Some happy faces here, some sad faces here. We're kind of getting into I guess I say the meat of the schedule, but really for a lot of us, we're just now concluding the non-conference play. We look ahead in today's episode where we're going to kind of recap this last week, and then we'll look ahead to our next 2 weeks until our next episode. So week 5, a lot of good non-conference action as we go through some of our pick'ems here in a little bit. We'll go over some of that disparity in the pick'ems this week. I think we'll have some separation finally amongst the top. It's getting a little lonely at the top, but I think at some point someone might overtake it. And then, of course, a lot of us are on a bye week in week 6, so we kind of get to regroup a little bit. But there is some action going on in Conference USA. But before we roll into the future, let's take a step back this last week. We've got a good number of people here to represent the conference. We're still missing some of our fan favorites, but we will go around the table, if you will, and we'll start with arguably the best win of the weekend, question mark. I don't know, but we'll talk to Mr. Moffitt here, and I'll have him take it away with his win over Toledo. It's quite the showing from the Hilltoppers.
Yeah, that win was a big win. We knew coming into that game that it was going to be a tough matchup. That was a really good Toledo team last year that obviously ran that conference, even though they lost in their conference championship game, but returned a lot of good pieces for this season. Their schedule was hard to read. They had played a couple lower quality teams, but then coming off that win over Mississippi State, which still isn't a great SEC team, it's still an SEC team. So really a tough game. We were coming off a really good game versus MTSU. I felt good about it. The line opened at -1. It closed at 2.5 before kickoff. So, knew it was going to be a battle of a game. The first half and plus of the game before that weather lightning delay was a really just odd showing of our offense. I felt like we weren't playing to our capabilities, playing as well as we've seen us play against MTSU. And some of that may be to the credit of Toledo. They were doing some good things defensively, making us have to change things up. And we weren't executing as well as I would like. But I guess luckily you could say we did have a lightning delay in the middle of the third quarter. Took us off the field for a little over an hour, I believe it was. And then when we came back on the field, we were just playing on defense like our hair was on fire. Just getting after the quarterback, just making plays. Had a couple game clinching interceptions down in the end zone as Toledo was driving to possibly take the game back in control. So it was really a roller coaster of emotions type of ball game. It really felt like the type of ball game that during my WKU fandom, stretching back 20 plus years now, it feels like we lose that game 90% of the time. We don't come out on the upper hand in that game 90% of the time. But I think it says a lot about this team, the leaders on this team, the coaching staff, and just people coming through and just making plays. That's what it comes down to. Players make plays. Caden Veltkamp in his first career start, wasn't what he wanted to put on field, but still was a good showing. And then Devontae Matthews on the back end with those 2 picks at the end. And he had another one that was called off for a very ticky-tacky PI call that wasn't even on him. It was on another guy, and then he was coming over the top to intercept the ball. So the ball wasn't catchable, in my opinion, because he was picking it off. But should have had a hat trick of interceptions. Just really impressed by how we played. Big win. All the wins are going to be big. They're all tough. But that was definitely a roller coaster game, and I'm glad we came out on top for that one.
A strong game for the Hilltoppers, and as we've talked about in the past about talking about conference dominance or really having a good showing for your conference, that's a good one. I mean, you got Toledo, who's top of the MAC, and at least the Hilltoppers are doing what it takes to be necessary, at least to make this conference not look like a laughing stock as it has been in the early going. Wink, wink, FIU. But we'll move on to another team that performed really well this week. Hunter Watson looks like the real deal once again as the Bearcats ran literally all over New Mexico State, nearly going for 300 yards on the ground. I mean, what are you seeing up there, Ben?
Yeah, it's been a fun start to the season. 3-1. You already matched your win total from last year when you went 3-9. So that's been really cool to see. And going back to last season, Sam Houston's won 6 of their last 8. And so obviously played UCF 2 weeks ago, and that was a pretty big beating, losing by about 4 to 5 scores. That kind of ran all over us. But the 3 G5 teams that you've played, New Mexico State, Hawaii, and Rice, have been 18 to 20-point victories in all 3 of them, which has been really good to see. The offense has really flashed like I thought it would, which has been exciting. And Hunter Watson has definitely been a lot of fun to watch, especially on the ground. Had 110 yards rushing by himself in the first half against New Mexico State. And with his legs, I mean, he's just so dynamic. Still trying to figure things out through the air a little bit. It's been very hit or miss with Watson. I think part of that is because he missed the first week of training camp and all of summer. So he's still getting back into live reps, still getting some reps under his feet. So hopefully he can shore up the passing a little bit. He did miss the fourth quarter against New Mexico State. He just got crushed a couple times on some big runs and on a couple sacks. So I think he'll be fine. He'll be out there for Texas State. So he's been great on the ground, decent through the air. It's been very up and down, but the defense has been just lights out. Obviously, UCF was a tough game. I mean, they rushed for 300 yards against TCU. They rushed for 300 plus against us. I mean, they're going to do that against a lot of opponents. But the 3 G5 teams you've played, it's been 14, 13, and 11 points you've given up on defense. And so the Skylar Cassidy-led defense, youngest defensive coordinator in the FBS. I mean, it's been very, very impressive. Kayla Weaver was the defensive player of the week last week. He's been really good. A lot of the edge guys have been really good. And last week we were without Isaiah Nixon, who might be our best edge rusher, and Davion Armstead, who's probably our top corner. And it sounds like we'll get him back for Texas State. So that's really good, getting a little healthier on the defensive side. So it's been a good start to the year. Still think the offense can execute a lot better, but a lot of penalties, just kind of the execution's been up and down. But overall, it's been a pretty good start to the year for the Cats.
Well, from one bin to another, we'll go around to the Liberty's game. I think we all went to bed thinking Liberty's finally going to get what they deserve, and yet they somehow play some good enough defense to find their way through it. They end up getting a win some way, somehow. Ben, I made the joke with you a couple weeks ago in our group chat that like maybe the team's only practicing 2 days a week, and they're just they're sleepwalking through this early going. And we kind of saw that come to a culmination on Saturday. They kind of slow start, but the defense kept them in the game. And then Caden Salter did what he does, that go on that big, long 10-play, 77-yard drive and take themselves ahead in an interception to win the game. So, Ben, I mean, what are you seeing from the Flames? I think you would agree that they're not playing to their expectation thus far.
Yeah, we're not playing well. I give them a little bit of an excuse this week. That was a brutal delay. It is probably one of the most brutal delays that I've ever been a part of. In any type of sports. But it was tough. We were like, oh, it started clearing up. And we're like, oh, yeah, we're in the clear. And everybody was like, I think we're going to play. And that was like maybe 40 minutes in. And then it just kept coming more and more and more. And they just popped up. And we're like, okay. So we started hearing rumblings on Twitter and stuff. We're like, oh, game's going to start at 10:45. And it was just a crazy experience. Glad I could experience it. Just wanted to get that out of the way. But yeah, it was frustrating. Jeremiah, I mean, shout out to him. Him and I got into like a whole argument because we were so frustrated at how the team was playing. We had like a brotherly fight, and just because we were both mad about how terrible we started. I haven't been able to do my podcast yet, but I will get into that deeper as I record that tomorrow night. But it was a crazy start. Salter, I don't know what he was doing. And this has always been a critique of me. That's why I said it earlier on this back in August when we were doing our rankings. Like, he can be very indecisive with the ball. And he doesn't make a decision, And then once he started doing that, I don't know what Chadwell said. I don't know what Korn said, but I do know that once he started making decisions, everything just was let loose, and he just started balling. And shout out to Reese Smith, man. Can't shout out him anymore. He transferred in from West Virginia. We were excited about him. He did very good at West Virginia in the time that he did have there. He had some injuries. Then he comes in, tears his ACL, out for the entire year, and then starts off the year a little slow, still a little banged up, and then has probably one of the best receiving performances I've ever seen by a receiver. His yardage honestly doesn't do it justice. What he did Saturday into Sunday morning, it was incredible. He just really battled through all that, and I'm excited to see what our wide receiver group looks like coming this week, because I think they're really starting to come together. Dante Lee really stuck out to me. Elijah Cannon had a nice touchdown as well. But then you also had Tyson Mobley, who was finally coming together as well. He knows the Chadwell system. He was with the Coastal Carolina Chance for those 3-4 years, in his 5th or 6th year. I can't really remember with the COVID and all that stuff. But yeah, it's just really good to see this team starting to come together. Billy Lucas had some nice runs. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we're starting to see Dexter Ricks, who played very well against UTEP. He's starting to step up. He got burnt a couple of times against Campbell, and he got burnt a couple of times against New Mexico State. And we were just like, and he's really getting his feet underneath him as a redshirt sophomore. And man, this team's going to be very good. Now, I will say this: the one thing that makes me a little bit nervous is Brylan Green, our All-American safety. He got hurt pretty bad Saturday night. I don't know his status. I haven't checked any of the media press conferences or anything. I don't know if we had one today, but it wasn't good. So outside of that, and the really rough start, we look like a team that could really storm into Boone. Hopefully not bring the storms with us and come out with a win.
I think you'll be surprised, and all of our viewers will be surprised where the roundtable went in regards to that matchup in Boone this upcoming week. And I'll tease that now, because obviously that's a much anticipated matchup that we all look forward to the start of the year. So tease that, pocket that, keep sticking around and see where the roundtable finished. Now, Jake to Jake, the only reason I give you such a hard time about this is because I don't gamble very often, but this weekend I put the Panthers in my four game parlay, and I took them at the 12.5 points. And man, was I let down. And I'm sure I don't even scratch the surface of the emotions that you and FIU fans feel, because you almost had a comeback, much like we did against Tennessee Tech. We were fortunate to get the comeback drive, and you were real close. A 20-yard pass play. I think it's a fumble inside the red zone. It's that's a tough one. So Jake, tell us about those emotions and where your head's at after a game like that.
Yeah, it's tough not to just immediately panic after a loss like that. But I mean, it's tough to say. I felt down in the dumps after we lost to FAU. I mean, part of that is because we made the trip to Boca Raton, and I didn't realize at the time, but how much having our stadium named after Pitbull would put a massive target on our back as far as memes and content that other teams would put out when they beat us, and FAU took full advantage of that. I can't wait to see what Liberty does in a couple weeks, the content they put out. But yeah, it sucked. I mean, there's just no getting around it. It was a game that FIU was supposed to win. It was their homecoming matchup, a very solid crowd at Pitbull Stadium. And while FIU's offense, for the most part, had a very solid game, the defense absolutely let the Panthers down. Granted, we knew going into that game that Monmouth had, no joke, one of the better offenses in all of FCS. I mean, their quarterback, I believe, was first in both passing yards and passing touchdowns in FCS prior to this game. Robertson, funny enough, Derek Robertson for Monmouth was actually a transfer from the University of Maine, who FIU played last season. So this is the second time Robertson has played FIU in his career. He lost the first meeting. Now he gets them in game number 2. But no, Monmouth's offense was absolutely fantastic coming into this game. And yeah, FIU's defense just played some of the worst football for the majority of the game. And it's funny because that's not how it started. considering the first touchdown for the Panthers was, I believe, an 86-yard pick six from Travion Barnes all the way to the house that put FIU up nicely. And then they got out to, I believe, a 14-0 lead. And you thought, okay, FIU is going to do what was expected of them. I believe they were favored by 14. I think it dropped to 12. But regardless, I thought FIU's offense was going to look great and the defense was going to hold off a very stingy Monmouth offense. But no, the Hawks had their way almost the entirety of the game. And FIU's offense had their way almost the entirety of the game. That's why you have a final score at this, where Kewan Jenkins broke his single game passing yards record of now at 362 yards, 2 touchdowns, 23 completions. He had a phenomenal game, maybe one of his best games statistically as a Panther, and it went up in smoke because the defense could not stop Monmouth with minutes to go. And FIU's offense came really close on their final drive. Eric Rivers had the ball. He made a move to the right side of the field, and he was at the 1/2 yard line when the ball was stripped away. Monmouth recovers, and that was that. It obviously it should not have gotten to that point where the game was on the line for that to happen, but I digress. It was a wake-up call. This is a massive wake-up call for FIU's defense, who I'm sure you guys know looked absolutely spectacular against Central Michigan a couple of weeks ago. 5 interceptions, absolutely just dominated the Chippewas. But no, it was a tough watch, and likewise, all of the the Barstool sideline accounts for FIU went absolutely ballistic after the game, talking about someone's got to answer for this, and obviously all of the blame is going towards Mike McIntyre, our head coach. I'm in the belief that this is one of the worst losses in his career, no doubt about it. It's a game they should have won handedly from the start, and they just didn't. But at the same time, there is 8 games to go in the regular season. Things can change. It sucks that they went 1-3 in conference play, because I thought this was a very favorable conference schedule for the Panthers, and I still think they have a favorable CUSA schedule. They don't have to play Western Kentucky. They're taking on La Tech next week. But wow, the vibes are at an all-time low as far as Mike McIntyre's time here at FIU. And it's funny because usually we're very skeptic on the offense, but they were not the problem in this game for the most part. So it was just a tough night overall. The only thing that could have made it worse was bad weather, but funnily enough, it was actually a beautiful night in Miami. So go figure.
Well, there you go for our representatives here. It was a week, action-packed. I wish I could have some positive feelings about my own Blue Raiders this week, but they fall 45-17 to the Duke Blue Devils, losing to our former defensive coordinator from just over a decade ago, Manny Diaz. He has a 4-0 Duke team who seems to be, I wouldn't say the real deal, but they definitely look like they're going to go 5-0 with North Carolina this upcoming week, who had quite the showing this last week in getting boat raced by James Madison at home. So, but anyways, to MTSU, another tough week. Nothing really seems to be going in the right way. We're just spinning our wheels against Western Kentucky 2 weeks ago. In the 100 miles of hate, you get 2 red zone turnovers that end up to 0 points. You put yourself out of the game by the second quarter. This week, we fumble inside of Duke's red zone. They have 3 scoring drives inside the red zone. So you don't even give yourself an opportunity to get into the game. And for the second straight week, you take yourself out before you even get to halftime. And then on top of that, we go to the second half. As it's already been mentioned by everyone here, we also had a weather delay. Just almost shy of 2 hours ourselves. We come out, score on our first drive. Maybe that was a secret, because that's also what happened in our first week game against Tennessee Tech. Came out from a weather delay, scored that opening drive, but it's still too late. You put yourself out so early. So not much positive talk to really go about with the Blue Raiders right now. We go to Memphis this week. A lot to be scared of in regards to just coming out alive, because we're just right now trying to survive into conference play. And I'll go ahead and head up those that aren't represented here. Jacksonville State, they get their first win under their belt, 44-7 against Southern Miss. They make the change at quarterback. Tyler Huff wasn't on my bingo card. I don't know, much about him, but he seems to be doing the right things, or the necessary things, to get that Rich Rodriguez offense looking like it's supposed to be. 236 yards, 14 completed passes on 16 attempts. I think that's kind of what Rich Rod wants to see. So Jacksonville State, are they reformed? Are they to that top tier like we all thought they'd be now that they have a quarterback? I mean, Southern Miss isn't necessarily the greatest team, but beating anyone 44-7 should mean something. UTEP drops their fourth consecutive start to year 27-17 at Colorado State. Cade McConnell, he's back. Maybe that's the resurgence that Scotty Walden needs to get the Miners back to some version of relevancy. As you'll see in our power rankings this week, not a lot of respect for the Miners, and to be expected when you drop that home opener with Southern Utah, and then your offense just isn't what it needs to be competitive. Tulsa, come from behind victory against Louisiana Tech. Evan wasn't able to join us from Go Tech. Please don't die. But Louisiana Tech, I think they're better. They're better than I thought they were. They're hanging around. I know that Nicholls State game in week 1 has a lot of people suspect on the Bulldogs, but they had an opportunity to beat Tulsa this week. Tulsa, the Hurricanes drove down the field, tied it up with a field goal, and then much like ourselves and FIU, they had the fumble. They had the fumble Ruski going in overtime, fumble that first drive, and all Tulsa had to do was get a field goal, and they settled for that. And that wraps it up. So where does that put us in regards to the Pick'em standings? Well, as I already previewed, it's lonesome at the top. I've been hanging out there at 31 points, just barely holding on with an underdog lead. Adrian, Minor Talk, and Pause Up, Jake Gibson hanging on right behind at 30 points. So at any time now, they're more than welcome to take the top spot. You got Steven right behind as well at 30 points. You got Ben Sorrells at 27. Go Tech, Please Don't Die at 26, tied up with Ben from Fan the Flames podcast. Getting a lot of grief there from the Flames loyal. They don't like what Ben's putting out there. And then we got Caleb at 700 PLM podcast at 24 points. So hanging around, maybe some some underdog picks will get them back into this thing. But Ben, what's up with all the grief you seem to get? I don't get that from anyone else in this league.
Oh, it's just Jeremiah. He's a podcast co-host. He's just giving me crap. He's the guy I was talking about earlier where we got into a fight during the game. Yeah, it's all good. Some of the picks, like, I was the only one that picked Louisiana Tech over NC State. And they were this close. If only they didn't turn the ball over in some crucial spots. They could have beat NC State. So, it's not going the right way. But, hey, listen, man, I'm trying to bet on Conference USA and not thankfully – yeah, that's true. Not thankfully, I'm not losing any money by doing it. As long as we keep on doing that, I'll be willing to stay in last place. But I can tell you what, I'll be right about my picks this week. You already know.
Well, that's a great segue.
Better says, right?
That's a great segue into where we're going. We're going to go ahead and preview this upcoming week. We got a lot of action on slates. We'll go ahead and pull that up here. Yeah, there we go. So I believe I have this in chronological kickoff order. So hopefully it's easy to follow. But Western Kentucky will start the day off. They're traveling to who was ranked Boston College. I haven't checked the latest polls, but they had a narrow win against Michigan State, so they got a tough road contest there. And surprisingly enough, Ben, you're the only one to take the toppers. Let's hear that insight.
He's got an upset every week.
Yeah, man, I got to have at least one. I thought it was funny, though. I started laughing because I saw Caleb's pick for UT Martin to beat Kennesaw. Of course he would. He's a Jacksonville State fan. But anyways, listen, man, in no capacity do I ever want to cheer for Western Kentucky outside of the, out of conference games. I mean, why? Why would I want to do that? Anyways, I'm just joking. But I do think that Boston College is a little bit of kind of a fraudulent team this year. They beat Michigan State in that last minute play or whatever. I just missed it because a real game that I actually care about was playing and started back up. I don't care about Michigan State. I mean, I come from Big Ten country. So anyways, I think that win's kind of overrated anyways. So, but don't get me wrong, BC's going to come out and play, and it's going to be a tough game. But I think Western Kentucky has a ton of momentum. I think Jake Gibson maybe had the steal of the century by getting Caden Veltkamp in our fantasy league. It's when we didn't expect
I already cut him.
Oh, well, so much for that then. But that's the crazy thing is I think this Western Kentucky team is going to shock some people. And I tell you what, if we can come away with Western Kentucky, Sam Houston, and Liberty winning this weekend, especially the Sam Houston and Liberty ones, because those are that Sun Belt versus Conference USA thing. You already know that this is going to be a huge week for Conference USA. And if Western Kentucky comes out with a win against those non-ball knowers up in Boston, they don't care about college football up there. Let's be real. The Northeast doesn't. So stop acting like you guys do, because you guys have a good team every 10 years. But anyways, you guys are Patriots fans just because they're no longer good. Let's be real. So yeah, let's go. Let's get some big wins this weekend.
They're a spoiled fan base in general. I mean, you got the Bruins and you got the Celtics, right? Like they've had enough winning, and it's all in the professional ranks. Nothing down here where we are. But Stephen, I'll turn it over to you. Your thoughts on this spot, because I do think, I mean, as well as the best that we've seen Western Kentucky play in these last 2 weeks, and as bad as Boston College has looked at times, I mean, you have to think that you know things get close around that third quarter. You got a chance.
Yeah, I think we'll have a puncher's chance if we don't have self-inflicted injuries like we did against Toledo. We had a lot of penalties that were very ill-timed that either wiped off big plays or turnovers for us or extended drives for them. I think if we play clean football, we're going to have a chance. But I still think it's a tough matchup. And the biggest thing that scared me coming into this season about them was their rushing attack, especially their rushing quarterback. He is versatile, might not throw the ball all over the yard against you, but if a play breaks down, he can extend it with his legs. And then they have several running backs, 2-3 guys, one of those being a former Western Kentucky guy in Kai Robichaux that was here on our campus a couple years ago. That we know can do some damage, and we know our rushing defense has been suspect at times. So, it's not a game that I projected us to win. I think we might take a close loss. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Ben from Fan the Flames is correct. I'll love to come on in a couple weeks and eat that crow, but I think it's going to be a tough matchup, especially on the road. That just always makes it a little bit tougher. But I hope I'm wrong. Who knows?
All right, another anticipated matchup this week, the Week 5 matchup between Sam Houston State, Texas State, another in-state rivalry, maybe. I don't know where Sam Houston stands on the heels of Texas State, but as you can see, the Roundtable is an even 4-for-4 split on them. Myself, Go Tech, Please Don't Die, Fan the Flames, Ben yourself, you're taking the Bearcats over Texas State. Tell us a little bit about this matchup.
Yeah, it is a pretty big rivalry. Haven't played in a little over a decade at this point, but before Texas State moved up to the FBS level, it was kind of like a 1A, 1B rivalry with SFA being 1A and Texas State being 1B. So it's definitely been an interesting week on social media. Texas State and Sam Houston fans really getting after it for the first time in a little over a decade. So that's been fun. And it's a really big matchup. I think Sam Houston, depending on the sports book you're looking at, is anywhere from an 8 to 10 point underdog, which is about where I thought it would be. Ticket sales, if you look online, it's probably going to be about 75-25 Sam Houston. So hoping the crowd can get rocking there at NRG, get 20, 30,000 fans in there because that place gets really loud. I think it can make a difference. We've seen it happen in the past, but it's going to be a great game. I mean, Texas State is a team a lot of people picked as kind of a dark horse G5 to make the playoffs. I know they lost to Arizona State, so that kind of put a damper on their playoff hopes. But it's going to be a great game. A lot of our staff, or a couple of our staff members, have been at Texas State in the past too, so will be fun to see that. And if you win this one, I mean, Sam Houston fans have got to be feeling really good. I think Texas State and Liberty and probably Western Kentucky are the three best teams left on your on your schedule. So if you can beat Texas State, you got to feel confident you could really win any game on the schedule. Need to see the offense connect and click a little better, get the passing game going, and just need the defense to continue to hold strong against a good Texas State offense and Jordan McLeod. So going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a tight game, really down to the end. And I'm really hoping it's Sam Houston that comes out on top, but it's going to be a really good game regardless.
I'm hanging on for the underdog points. I could either get a lot of separation or I will relinquish my lead with this one. So I feel confident in the Bearcats, and really I think it comes back to that Rice game. I don't know what it is about Sam Houston. They seem to show up. The UCF game I think is a little bit of a fluke. I think Central Florida is just the one they're that good. But I don't. Maybe Sam Houston was on their heels of a game like that where they came off of such a great game with Rice. I don't know. I think the Bearcats have got a good chance.
Yeah, I think the UCF game was one. UCF is just extremely good. I mean, going on the road beating TCU, even though TCU isn't great, but UCF looks like they're going to be pretty good. And number two, I just don't think we played very well. I mean, as good as we played against Rice, I think we played just as bad against UCF. I mean, we're just missing tackles left and right, missing blocks we should make. So not a game I think we should have won, but definitely should have been a lot closer. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and we haven't lost inside of NRG Stadium since we started playing there back in, I believe it was 2012. We beat SFA 11 times in a row to end that rivalry, won every game at NRG Stadium. So hopefully we can keep that undefeated streak going.
Right. Well, another matchup that I had teased earlier in the show is that Liberty App State game that we all look forward to. And as you can see, it's a unanimous roundtable pick. We all have the Flames over the Mountaineers. And I don't know if that has more to do with how well Liberty looked in the second half last week or how bad App State has looked in the last couple of weeks. But Ben, your thoughts on this matchup?
Listen, I'll be down there in Boone. And if any of those hippie mountain folk are listening to this podcast, I'll happily greet you with love. And then we'll beat you. And then I'll love you again. I'm excited about this game. I really am. Speaking of the storm, it is going to rain. I'm going with a couple of very good friends. I'm really excited. We're going to go stay in Beach Mountain. We're going to kind of go enjoy the scenery if we can. In the morning, maybe get a hike in. We'll see how we feel after Friday night. We're going to try to watch the Tech Miami game. And hopefully Miami wins that game because screw Virginia Tech. But anyways, moving on. It's going to be a fantastic crowd. There's a lot of Liberty faithful coming to this game. This is going to be one of the most traveled games, I would say. One of the best traveled. This, and I would say maybe even Kennesaw State, because we have a lot of alums down there. So I'm really excited about this. I'll be able to go have a nice little brewski with some App State fans, kind of enjoy the scenery. And then I know there's some people that are Liberty alums that live in Boone because of Samaritan's Purse, living local right there as well. And we had a lot of alums that go and work there. So it'll be kind of an interesting experience for us. But I see us coming away with this win. It's going to be a close one, obviously. It's a road game, but it would be nice if we would do what South Alabama just did. But the nice thing with App State is they now have those extra couple days to, prepare for this game and make adjustments, where Liberty just came off another late game. So that makes me a little bit nervous for this game. I think I might have picked these games before the ECU. No, you sent out this yesterday, right? So I didn't even think about that. I started thinking about that. I'm like, man, I didn't feel the best waking up the next day. I can't imagine our players who had to go through that, how they felt. So I'm hoping we can get some good recoveries. But here's the thing. Like I said earlier, I think one of the nice things is this wide receiver room is coming up to speed, and it may not have the flashy one target guy yet. And we're going to start to see that. Maybe Reese Smith is that guy. But I think we're going to start seeing that continue to develop, and our defense is going to continue to improve, especially some of our young guns in the secondary. That was part of our issue with New Mexico hanging around, Campbell hanging around, was a lot of youth and some new guys. But we're starting to see them mesh together, and TJ Bush and CJ Bazile, two of the stalwarts on our ends are really starting to pick it up. So, and here's the crazy thing is our running game, despite of having a good little game this past Sunday morning, they're not even at top speed yet. There's a lot of problems still going on. And you saw it earlier in the game with the mesh points with our running backs. And so if that starts coming together, oh boy, we'll be running at full speed ahead and hopefully crush them. But I don't know if that will happen. I actually predicted that we were going to lose this game early on this year, but I feel a little bit differently now. But if we lost it, I wouldn't be surprised. So.
Yeah, and maybe you could even say they fell into a trap game with South Alabama this last week, looking ahead to the Liberty game, which is very, very possible. And college football is a funny game like that. I can say that at least. Let's move on. Other picks. UT Martin travels to Kennesaw State. I think a lot of us, again, unanimously believe that the Owls will get their first win as an FBS program, albeit over an FCS team, except Caleb Williams, who I think in principle has selected the Skyhawks of Tennessee Martin to go down to Kennesaw and pick up a win there. And then we got another Conference USA matchup, La Tech, FIU. Two teams that when we get to our power rankings here in a little bit, we'll kind of see that those two teams are in that middle group together. A lot of us believe. So this is an opportunity for FIU to kind of right the ship this week against Louisiana Tech. Jake, let's break down where the Golden Panthers can make those corrections and get a really more important win, and that's a conference win this week.
Yeah, I think it's such a cliche to say that these games are must wins, but considering what we just witnessed these past 2 weeks with this FIU squad, gosh, they really need to win this game against La Tech. They haven't been 1-0 in conference play since 2018. I was a freshman at FIU back in 2018, so it's been a long time since they've gotten to a hot start against conference play. But that's part of what I said earlier, that with a very favorable CUSA schedule, you take on UTEP, New Mexico State, Kennesaw State, but it all starts here with La Tech. They need to look good. They need to right their wrongs on defense. And something I didn't mention when talking about that Monmouth game, but FIU's run offense has been very disappointing so far. In these last couple of games, they haven't had a 100-yard rusher in these past 2 games. I really want to see both between Shamari Lawrence, Keyshawn Owens, and Lexington Joseph, who can be the reliable RB1 when the time calls for it. But I like what I saw from FIU's offense passing wise against both Monmouth as well as in the second half against FAU. So hopefully that continues to evolve. I'm still going to say we don't know exactly who our wide receiver 1 is, if they even intend to run a system like that, which warrants it. However, Eric Rivers has looked really good, back-to-back games with over 100 receiving yards for him. Keewan Jenkins has found his groove, and in that game against Monmouth, no interceptions. So obviously it's all about keeping the ball, keeping your own ball and not giving up silly turnovers. It's literally what cost FIU the game against Monmouth. And I'm very worried about Louisiana Tech because I don't know what they're going to be coming with on offense against FIU. They ran 3 quarterbacks in their last game. Jack Turner, Blake Baker, and Evan Bullock all got snaps in their prior game. Louisiana Tech's rushing game so far also looks to be struggling just as much as FIU's has, so that's going to be a toss-up. And then defensively, I mean, they've had some really close games. It hasn't gone their way for most of them with a 1-2 record, but I mean, they kept it a 10-point loss to NC State and obviously lost in overtime against Tulsa. So their defense definitely going to be a big test for FIU. Obviously way better than Monmouth's defense is so far. But yeah, it's a game that they have to win, and it feels like it could be a trap game for Louisiana Tech because obviously they want to get hot in the Conference USA slate of the schedule as well. And really, it's a toss-up. Both teams are experiencing similar struggles so far with lack of a running game and just mental mistakes here and there that's been costing them. And something's got to give, and hopefully it'll be the Panthers that come out on top in this one.
And it's always going to come down to which FIU team you're going to get. I mean, I was kind of riding the high of the Central Michigan win, and then these last 2 weeks have kind of set you back to where you were. And so, again, back to like you talk about heating up in conference play. I mean, maybe that's the win, or maybe that was the loss that you needed to get things right as you move into where the games start to mean just a little bit more. So
it would be one hell of a story. It would be one hell of a turnaround for FIU.
Well, if I can give you any iota of confidence here, the last time MTSU lost an FCS game was 10 years ago against McNeese State, and we finished 8-5 and second in the conference for whatever that is worth. I mean, and we beat Georgia Tech that year as well. So not that everything is there's correlation is causation or whatever term you want to use there, but it could mean anything. It could be the loss that you needed, as they say. So for us, however, we go down to Memphis, 3 hours away, and we're going to face Seth Hennigan and the Tigers. And everyone, myself included, are all on the same page here that I don't think even them losing to Navy this last weekend would be any reason that we have an opportunity to slip past them, because I'm sure that they're going to run the score up as they need to. I think going into the year, Memphis was in discussion for a G5 spot along with Liberty, along with Boise State, because they return so many weapons on offense. They return a pretty average defense, but that continuity is what they needed to be a threat in the G5 playoff spot, and they lose to Navy. So now they're back into got to blow teams out mode, and I'm afraid MTSU is going to be in the way of a bulldozer this next Saturday. So don't look forward to that one. And then finally wrap up the Week 5 slate is a New Mexico State game. A lot of us are split here as well as a 50-50 game. You got a New Mexico team, the Lobos, who lost their first matchup against an FCS opponent, actually kicked off the season with a loss to the FCS.
Yeah, week 0.
Yeah, so not an ideal start for the Lobos, and they really haven't gotten their feet underneath them. So I'm surprised, truthfully, to see some picks there, but I'm not too surprised because New Mexico State hasn't necessarily looked the part either, but New Mexico State does at least have a win under their belt. Yeah. They look to be improving at least week by week, so look forward to that matchup there. As again, that'll be kind of a separator when it comes to the standings in our weekly pick'em, and then we'll move on. Lastly, wrap up our pick'ems here with Week 6. Only 2 games on tap that week. You got Sam Houston State going to El Paso to face the Miners. Been unanimous decision there for the Bearcats. I think you feel pretty good about that one.
I think you do, but it's also, I think, the classic trap game. Team that hasn't been playing well against a team that has been playing well. Also a UTEP team that's coming off a bye, and we're going to be playing Texas State, and then on a short week traveling out to get to UTEP on a Thursday night. So I think it's kind of that classic trap game. I think we've got enough talent. We're a much better team, but it's going to be tough because we haven't had a bye yet. UTEP's coming off a bye, and it's a short week on the road. So don't think it's going to be easy, but I'll take a win any way we can get it going into that bye that we have after that. So expect us to win, but don't think it's going to be a blowout like some people think it will.
I look forward to it really for a lot of reasons. I want to see UTEP, how they respond in conference play. I think there's a lot to be excited about in that matchup, and being a return trip back home for them too. So other matchup, Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State. I think this one is an interesting one. Myself, other fellow Jake took Kennesaw State, as well as Ben Reynolds from Fan the Flames. We took what the underdog. I think a lot of us going into the year, actually not all of us, we all did. We all picked Kennesaw State to finish 10th in this conference, and now here we are going into Week 6, and we've got 3 people picking them over a team that we had in 3rd in the power rankings. I myself have had no confidence in Jacksonville State, regardless of their big win over Southern Miss this last weekend, whereas I think Kennesaw State is better than I thought they were going into the year. I think you could make a legitimate argument that the Owls win this one. I'll give the floor to Ben and Jake. What was your logic in that pick?
I mean, this random weekday matchup between these 2 schools that are still looking to make a name for themselves in Conference USA. Obviously, we all had high expectations on Jacksonville State leading in. Obviously, all the AP polls, most of the coaches thought that this team was going to pounce from the start, and they just haven't. But yeah, Kennesaw State, they're just a sneaky good team that's just had some tough breaks here and there, a pretty rough non-con schedule, all things considered. Hopefully they're going to, what I'm going to assume is blow out UT Martin, and then that's going to give them a lot of confidence as they take on a Jacksonville State team with a lot of questions yet to be answered. They're going to be at home. It's going to be under the lights. There's going to be, I mean, this is probably going to be the Conference USA equivalent of Maction between two schools just looking to get a good win. But I think I don't know. I have some faith in Kennesaw because I want to see him win. I want to see him win. Hopefully not against us when the time comes. When I really want to see Kennesaw State win a game, and I think this is going to be the ultimate trap game for Jack State, and it's one that they're just not going to walk away from.
Listen, everybody else in the college football world will be watching Houston at TCU or Michigan State at Oregon that Friday night. I will be watching this game. This game is going to be exciting. I think it's going to surprise some people. And I think Kennesaw is going to pull away with a win. I think they're honestly on the same level. And the reason why I say this is because I think Jack State and Kennesaw State had the same type of strategy moving up to the FBS, obviously trying to, reserve some guys. Now, Kennesaw State, they have some guys that are experienced. And I think you're going to start to see that as the season goes on, that they'll at least continue to get more and more competitive into games. And then you also got the Jacksonville State, who are on the other side of that, where last year they had that same type of experience, and now they're kind of reloading, or hopefully they're reloading, maybe it's a rebuild. We don't know. But being able to see how these teams have worked throughout the year, I think that we'll be into a spot where we could see this being a very good game, very exciting game. And, it's like Jake said, it's going to be kind of like that Maction type feel. Except for the nice thing is I can actually stay up to watch it and not have to go to bed early because I'm becoming old, just like my man Moff up there.
Well, much anticipated matchup there for a lot of reasons. I mean, Kennesaw State has an opportunity to win their first. Well, we assume they're going to beat UT Martin this week, but they're going to win their first FBS matchup, and it's against a rival that is Jacksonville State. So many implications there. Kick off your Conference USA season with a win. I mean, the amount of confidence that could bring for Bohannon and the Owls, it could be tremendous. Quickly, guys, as we wind down the hour here, I know all of us had contributed to the power rankings without going through if you're more than welcome to, but I love where we are in regards to the top of this conference and how things have shaken up. And even with the talk that the three of us have just mentioned about Jacksonville State having that lack of confidence, I'm stunned by the results of this. And this is the first time all of you guys have seen it, unless you're looking on Twitter already. You've got Liberty and Western, a very close race at the top there. I don't have the numbers specifically on our graphic here, but I know Western got 2 first-place votes. Sam Houston was a unanimous third pick on everyone's card, which I thought was funny enough that no one had them in the 2. I think you could maybe make an argument, but I think Liberty and Western are the clear 1s and 2s. The Jacksonville State at 4, head-scratcher for myself. But truthfully, when you look at the conference behind them, I mean, who else do you put at the 4 spot? You can't put Louisiana Tech. You definitely can't put Middle. FIU, maybe 2 weeks ago, I think you could make the argument that they're in the 4 spot. New Mexico State hasn't won. Kennesaw State hasn't won. UTEP hasn't won. So the 4 through 10, much like we entered the season, was a big question mark. And as we're going into week 5, we still have question marks at the 4 through 10. But let's talk. Luckily, we have a representative from those top 3 schools, and I'll turn it to Moff. He's been patiently waiting this whole time. I know we spoke before we came on. You voted for Liberty in the 1 spot, but I think you could make the argument that the Hilltoppers have looked the best in their last 2 matchups.
Yeah, absolutely. You could make the argument that WKU is the best team in conference right now, but I'm of the belief system, at my old age, to be the man, you have to beat the man, and we haven't beat the man yet. So, we just need to keep control what we can control, win our ball games, and look forward to that matchup over in Lynchburg. Right now, they're a team that they find a way to win games. With good, bad, or ugly, you win by 1 or you win by 100. If it goes in the left-hand column, that's all that counts at the end of the day. So they're still a good team. They're still the team to beat. Even if I think that at our best right now, I think we've played the best football this season, but that's not the case for what could be happening at the end of the season by the time we match up. So I'm okay with the rankings. I voted Liberty 1 and Western Kentucky 2 because my belief is we have to beat them on the field. So let's do it. Let's see it when it happens.
Absolutely. And Ben, I turn it over to you. Your Flames still hold the one spot in our power rankings. I'm sure you still feel that same level of confidence with them too.
If you would have told me this after the first quarter, I would have put us at the bottom. I would have put us at 9 or 10 because how bad we played. Like it was that bad, especially the interception. So, anyways, yeah, it really started to open up, and like I said, I think this is going to be the ultimate litmus test this weekend. Because the nice thing about with playing ECU is because I think ECU is going to finish in the top 3 or 4 in the American. I really, really do like how good they looked. I think ECU fans really are like, oh, we look terrible. Fire Mike Houston, blah, blah, blah. They looked very good, and they played App State pretty tough too. It was a 2-point loss, So I think this is going to be the great test. Can we go into Boone in this type of atmosphere and play this type of game? I think, there's a lot of people saying, well, hey, why is this not on a main channel like ESPNU and stuff? And I don't know. They put on, I guess, Georgia State and Georgia Southern or something like that. I guess because of maybe the ESPN rights that they have to do a Sun Belt game or prefer that over this. And maybe if App State would have, somehow beaten Clemson or made it a closer game, maybe they would have been like, okay, let's put this. But anyways, it's still going to be a big game. So that's I think if Liberty walks away with losing and doesn't look pretty, we could still be a close game and not look pretty. And then, Western Kentucky walks up there into Boston country. It's a company. I'm so used to seeing company being in the business world. Might as well be a company the way that they run it up there. But anyways, like if they can make it even a game up there, I might be arguing for Western Kentucky, pounding the table for them a little bit. Just maybe, hopefully, it could be a little bit of bulletin board material. I ain't afraid to do that. I love my guys, but I ain't afraid to do that. So,
well, that's another matchup again. I can't wait to see where we fall and getting to that point. As of now, it kind of looks like the Conference USA Championship. But I'm sure Ben, March to the Pod, says otherwise. Tell me, I was talking to Steven about maybe Sam Houston could sneak in as that 2 as the season goes on. They've had their bright spots, but they've definitely had their low spots. So can you make an argument why the Bearcats should be in the top 2?
Yeah, I think the scheduling part of it definitely favors Sam Houston. When we play Western Kentucky, they're on a 6-day week traveling to us, so we're coming off a 16-day bye. And so I think that could definitely be a part of it. And then Liberty comes to Sam Houston on a short week, Saturday to Friday on the road. So the scheduling definitely favors Sam Houston. And I think Sam Houston's right there with Western Kentucky and Liberty. Summed them off. I don't know you got to beat them to kind of rank them above them. But I think the case is I think you're right there with them. And then the scheduling part of it definitely goes in your favor for both games. So I think that's something to watch for both of those games down the road.
And I'll turn Jake to Jake. It's us down here in the bottom. I'll flash it again. We're kind of hanging on there in that 6-7 spot. I think both of us would like to have more confidence. I truthfully was a little surprised that we had eked our way into the 6th spot, be it how our season has gone thus far. I want to hear from you. I know you have the confidence because, as I already touched on, if we do this ranking 2 weeks ago, FIU looks like the 4th best team. They're definitely better than Jacksonville State when you look at that Central Michigan game. So tell us quickly, a little bit about how you think FIU could fare in these upcoming weeks to kind of, again, right the ship for them.
Well, that's why this Louisiana Tech game is so important for FIU to win, because then they got to go to Lynchburg right after. And come on. What sucks is that Lynchburg game is the same day as the season opener for the Florida Panthers against Boston, which, I mean, damn, I really want to see them raise the banner, man. But I digress. No, definitely they could turn things around momentum-wise if they beat Louisiana Tech. Obviously, you want to go into that Liberty game at least feeling some sort of confidence. It's regardless of if they win or lose, it's going to be tough. But for the next few weeks for FIU, you're teetering between playing both the good teams and the bad teams, because right after you play Liberty, you go to the Sun Bowl, take on UTEP, but then you host Sam Houston, what's going to be their vice game, and then you take on New Mexico State. So I don't know, just it's going to be tough, because the fact that they went 1-3 in non-con play, if they beat the teams they're expected to beat in Conference USA, that still might only be 5 wins. So you're going to have to make a name for yourself in a game against one of the better teams in Conference USA, and it looks like that's going to have to be that vice game against Sam Houston State on October the 22nd. So it's going to be a tough challenge, and I'm not so positive that FIU can do it at this point because of their losses to both Monmouth and even FAU. But yeah, I actually put us below New Mexico State simply because they didn't lose to an FCS team. So that was pretty much my only reasoning. And then, UTEP and New Mexico State, I mean, for that matter, they probably won't even be here in a couple of years anyway. So not too much to think about with them. But no, not a great scenario for FIU. The downward spiral they've been on since that Central Michigan game is pretty crazy. But I do pretty much agree with the rest of the power rankings list. I mean, that Western Kentucky Sam Houston game on October 16th, that's going to be some cinema for this Conference USA. It's probably going to decide who's going to be the number 2 in CUSA, assuming Liberty stays their course and keeps winning games, which, to their credit, they know how to win games there. So
I don't know. Don't give the Flames too much credit. They got to come to the daunted Floyd Stadium in Murfreesboro late in the season, and that could derail anything that Chadwell has for those guys. So
hey, I'll be there. I'll sit right next to you.
Well, I'm sure you'll hold the tissues for me and all that once the truth actually comes out about that game. But anyways, guys, great episode this week. So much information as we broke down weeks 5 and 6 power rankings. Look forward to doing that again in 4 more weeks to see where things have fallen. Don't forget to, if you're listening, don't forget to follow on our Twitter at CUSA Roundtable. You get retweets of all the information from everyone here, doing weekly uploads, all the information you could possibly handle. I know Jake does stuff at the Pause Up podcast outside of just football, so tons of information. And I know, again, to tease outside of football, we are just a little over a month away from exhibitions in basketball season, and the podcast Roundtable will continue into basketball season, so keep your eyes peeled as we start putting some things together, some more marketing material, if you will, for those uploads coming up in the near future. So, again, CUSA Roundtable. Don't forget to get all your information there, and we will see everyone again in 2 weeks.